What's up guys, Intelitech Studios here, and today we're going to be doing the full review of the Dirt Devil Razor Pet Bagless Upright Vacuum Cleaner. Now as of now, this is currently Dirt Devil's flagship vacuum cleaner in their lineup, and it's something that I haven't seen very many YouTube videos on, let alone a full proper review from someone that's actually used this machine day to day for some amount of time. So, this is my full review. I bought this machine brand new about a week and a half ago, and I've been using it every day since. And I don't mean like basic weekly vacuuming. I mean I've used this every day, sometimes multiple times a day, to get a good feel about how this vacuum works, and whether or not Dirt Devil's flagship machine in their lineup is something worth considering if you're shopping for a vacuum cleaner in the $100 to $150 range. So I purchased this machine from my local Walmart for about $99. Now, depending on where you can find this machine, you can find this on sale at Walmart either on the website or your local store for somewhere in the mid to upper 90s. I've seen some listings go for around 96, some go for 99, and some go for around 109. It really just depends on your specific location where you can find this. This currently retails on Dirt Devil's website for $129, and I'll get into whether I think it's worth the price later on in the video. But for now, let's start off with the basic overview of this machine. Now, if I ever stutter or make any weird, sort of ramblings during this video, I apologize. As of the time I film this, it is currently 4:16 in the morning. But one thing that I will be doing to make this in-depth review a little bit more digestible is I will be narrating each individual topic as I go into it, so that way there can be chapters in the video description. So if you're watching this review for any specific aspect or point about the vacuum cleaner, you can hopefully find that information more easily if you're looking for that specific thing. So we're going to start off with the main overview of this machine, how it's set up, and overall how it works. Starting off with what you get in the box with the Dirt Devil Razor Pet, it pretty much is the same for every single unit, save for one detail. And there is also, by the way, a standard Dirt Devil Razor that is pretty much the exact identical machine, only it's not called Pet and has a different colored brush roll. Otherwise, it's exactly the same machine. So what you're going to have in the box, besides the vacuum itself and the box, is you're going to have basically two pieces of literature, a simple registration card, or not really much of a registration card, more so of a ad of some kind, basically stating that, hey, if you don't like your vacuum cleaner, please don't take it back to the store, we want to make it right, all the usual corporate stuff that you're used to seeing in your products. So feel free to discard that. Next, we're going to have our user's manual. The good news is about this vacuum is that it doesn't require any tools for installation, and I actually did an unboxing and assembly tutorial of this machine when I first got it. So if you're looking for one of those, I will link that in the description, at least if I remember to. If not, it's a recent upload on my channel as of the time that I post this review. So, manual also comes in two languages. It comes in English and what appears to be some type of Spanish. I'm assuming that's Spanish. Not sure what other language that would be. That's probably Spanish. So English, and the language that, as you can tell, I totally got a D in whenever I tried to take that language as a class. So we have that. We have our 2-in-1 tool. Now this particular tool is a crevice tool and a dusting brush built into one tool. Every single Dirt Devil razor should have this with it. So the dusting brush contracts right here, and you push it up into the end where the side clicks into place, and now you can use it as a dusting brush. And you press this button, slide it back down, and now you can use it as a crevice tool or to simply store it on the machine. Now, not every single variant of the Dirt Devil razor has this turbo brush, but if yours does, it'll have a bracket attached to the top of the handle with the turbo brush attached to it. Actually, no, I lied. The turbo brush should be attached to the bracket, and you push the bracket onto the handle. Whatever, you get the idea. So this particular turbo claw is also another accessory that'll be included with the machine. And that is pretty much it. That's all that will be included with the machine in the box, other than obviously the box itself, various packaging, cardboard. You get the idea. Now, as far as how to use the Dirt Devil Razor Pet, assembling it is fairly obvious. There's a little wand release button right here, and you simply push that and you can pull the wand straight out. Or adversely, if you're actually putting the machine together, you just simply grab the wand with the handle facing forward and snap it into the top There's a little vertical notch on the front, and then a little horizontal notch on the back. You want to line those up and snap it into place. Then there's a little hook down here that the hose clips into, and another hook up here that the hose clips into. And then there's also the cord that comes out right here, and you want to route that behind this hose right here, and then into this clip right here, and then over the cord winders. This vacuum has a quick release cord wrap, so you can take this very obvious red piece and flip it downwards in order to quickly release the cord off the vacuum. Then afterwards, you want to turn it back upright, so that way you can wind the cord once you're done vacuuming. To use the machine, there are two switches on the right side of the vacuum cleaner. There's a 0 and a 1 on the first switch to the left, and this is the power for the main machine. And the second one has a 0 and then a brush roll icon. This controls the brush roll of the machine. The power switch is pretty self-explanatory. Pressing it to the 1 turns the machine on, and flipping it back to the 0 turns the machine off. Of course, you're going to need the machine to be plugged in to achieve this successfully. The brush roll button is a little bit different. Whenever you put it on the 0 mode, that means that the brush roll is shut off, and when you put it on the brush, that means that the brush is turned on. However, keep in mind that the brush will only turn on when the machine is reclined for carpet use. When the machine is upright, like in this orientation, the brush roll will always be shut off. That's specifically to avoid damage to your carpet or any surface you may sit the machine on while you're attempting to use the tools. And that's whether or not you have the tools actually activated. If the machine is upright in any sense of the word and actually locked into the upright position like you see here, the brush roll will be off, even if this brush roll switch is set over to the brush roll mode, because the brush roll switch doesn't activate until you actually step on the machine and recline it back to begin vacuuming carpet. And as you can see, in order to recline the machine back, you just simply put your foot on the base of the machine and pull the machine back. Then you simply push it across your carpet or floors, and then once you're done, straighten the machine out. So even if you've been using the swivel head, you want to make sure to straighten the machine so that way it's as straight as possible, and push it forward until it clicks into place. And you want to make sure that you push it forward a little bit extra so that we can make sure the mechanism actually locks in place and the machine doesn't fall backwards from being falsely put into the upright position. As far as the ease of use of the machine, there really isn't much to complain about. It's pretty much exactly what you'd expect. The machine weighs about 13 pounds, so it's not at all that heavy. Not at all that heavy. That sounded funny the way I said that. It's not at all heavy, and even though it looks like it's got a little bit of sturdiness to it, it's still relatively lightweight. And it is certainly the type of machine where it's not Auric level lightness, but it's also not Kirby level heaviness either. For a machine in this price range, it's exactly where you'd expect it to be. One thing that is nice is the swivel steering. It does allow for the ability of the machine to be turned and twisted all over the place. And one of the things that I do like is that while the swivel steering mechanism is not all that confidence inspiring as far as build quality, it doesn't really feel like something that'll last the test of time. But as far as its ability to twist and turn and be easily maneuverable, I'm actually very impressed with how well the swivel neck works on this machine. It's very smooth, it's very fluid, and it's not the type of swivel neck where simply twisting the machine doesn't actively twist the floor head. All of the machine moves in one fluid motion whenever you twist your wrist, and it makes the whole machine very easy to maneuver. And the way the handle's designed, the way that I personally hold it, I like to rest my back of my hand right up against the edge of this handle right here and have my thumb basically right towards the curve. That seems to be the most comfortable way for me to hold the machine, and when holding it like that, this handle just feels very natural to hold, and it's definitely not something that I would complain about. One thing that I've complained about a lot of machines that are competing to this, like machines from Shark, those handles just don't feel as comfortable as this one does. Despite the fact that this is just a hard plastic handle with no real padding, the shape of it just feels a little bit better thought out. And pushing and pulling the machine is definitely something that's very easy to do. There's really not much to complain about in terms of maneuverability. And even though this wand does push into the handle, like a lot of other machines from Shark, Dyson, Phantom, and other companies over the years, While you do get a little bit of jiggle from the mechanism, it's not so loose that it feels like the machine's about to fall apart or like you're about to snap the handle off, like on the Bissell PowerForce Compact. It just feels like the whole thing is actually held together well when you're actually pushing and pulling the machine. The actual parts that you're handling feel relatively decent as far as build quality, and there's really not much to complain about. It may still feel like a cheap machine, but while this is still not something that I'm super confident about as far as build quality, it doesn't feel like the machine's falling apart. Then again, as soon as I say that, right on cue when I say that, the handle all of a sudden has part of it that's flexing, and you can actually hear a clicking noise. So, I take back what I said. While the handle is still comfortable to hold, it still doesn't feel like the best as far as build quality. It doesn't feel all that sturdy, and it definitely does leave some room to be desired. But again, the shape of the handle and the actual swivel neck is something that I do have to compliment on this particular machine. Regarding the power switches, as you can see, both of the power switches are on the right side of the machine, whereas when you compare it to a lot of other machines on the market, the actual button and switch is on the left side of the machine. Now, if you're right-handed and you're used to actually holding the vacuum in your right hand, then pressing the buttons on the machine with your left hand seems a little bit more natural. So in this configuration, if you are right-handed, then it's going to feel a little bit awkward trying to hold the machine and either balance it against yourself while you push the buttons, or just simply remembering to push the button before you pull the machine back. That is something that you could potentially have trouble getting used to. For me, it wasn't a big deal because even though it is awkward, I don't have any problems reaching across the machine to hit the buttons, or I have no problem vacuuming with my left hand. So if I was to actually use my right hand to turn on the switch and then actually proceed to vacuum with my left hand, that's something that I personally don't have a problem with, but your mileage may vary. It's something to keep in mind. If you're used to the switches being on the other side, that is something that could be getting used to. And same story with the cord. Since the cord is on the left side, switches are on the right side. Compare that to some other machines where the cord is on the right and the switch is on the left. One other aspect about this sort of wand design that can differ from other units is that there is no spring-loading mechanism with this wand. If you push this button, it does not release the wand, at least in the sense that it doesn't push the wand up to where you can just simply push this button once and then immediately grab the wand and pull it out. That is not an option. You need two hands to push this button with one hand and pull the wand out with the other, or do something that I used to do on the old school Phantom Thunder and just simply hit the button with the back of my hand while grabbing the wand and pull it out in one swift motion. So that is one thing you can do, or if you're not holding a camera like I am and you're vacuuming with two hands, then it's probably not such a big deal, but it is something to keep in mind. If you're used to pushing a button and then grabbing the wand, if you're a person who only has one arm or something to that effect, you may have a bit of a tougher time than with some other units that have a similar designed wand that turns into a handle. Or, I said that backwards, you know what I mean. One other note about this wand that makes it a little bit difficult to use is mainly two issues. Number one is the fact that this turbo brush caddy is actually attached to the wand. The actual bracket is on the wand and not on the machine itself. That means that whenever you're trying to use the wand for above floor cleaning, you have the weight of this turbo brush on the wand, and that combined with the fact that you have this handle that you have to hold and you're not holding on to the actual wand itself means you have a little bit less control about the direction that the wand is going in when you're trying to get it above to do some cleaning. So whenever you're holding it by the actual hose, you have a little bit more direct control over where it goes, and that's even with the turbo brush on, and especially with it off. But with the turbo brush on and having that extra weight fight against you, and trying to use the actual handle here, you have a little bit less control, and it's a little bit less obvious as far as getting to stuff. And because you're not holding the main point where all the weight is, the weight's just kind of dragging your hand downwards, it puts a lot more strain on my arm, and it makes it a lot harder to use this for above floor cleaning. Whereas when I simply grab it by this point, it makes all the difference. It's still straining as a result of the extra weight from the turbo brush, but it does help But again, like just holding this, my arm's already starting to get stiff and sore. My arm doesn't really have a lot of flexibility, and I'm not a very strong person, so simply trying to reach up to get into above high places, if I'm doing it for an extended period of time, my arm gets tired out very, very quickly, and it makes it not very pleasant to use this wand. The other issue with this wand is that there's not a whole lot of reach. It just kind of, yes, I can stretch with the hose all the way up to the ceiling if I had the attachment on, but it's not very easy to do. And another issue is that even with or without the hose in this little clip down here, the vacuum is, well, very prone to falling over. Now, it's not as bad with the hose in the clip, at least if you're pulling it directly backwards, but if you're trying to pull it at an angle, then you're likely going to tip the vacuum over and onto the floor. So the way that this vacuum has a narrow design, it makes it a little bit difficult to navigate and have it actually follow behind you if you're trying to use this essentially as a canister vacuum. Dirt Devil does sell a little sort of Swiffery pad attachment that you can use for hard floors, and I don't really see how useful this would be under that circumstance, especially given the fact that you can't really reach to the floor anyways. So this hose does have some issues with handling in terms of how the machine is stable and how much reach you actually have with the machine. And the last little usability gripe that I'll have is whenever you press this button to release the bin, this turbo brush kind of gets in the way of it because it's so close to the bin that it's really hard to kind of get your thumb in there and press the button to pull the bin release off. And for a normal person, it's going to get pretty annoying after a while. And the other thing is that whenever you're trying to line this up, trying to line it up with this bottom piece and with the latch is, I mean, it's fine, but it's not super obvious. You got to kind of wiggle it to kind of get it to line up and snap back into place. So that is another thing that an average customer might have some issues with, or if you're using this machine and you're not really thinking about it, you're just trying to put it back together, you might have trouble getting this on, and you might have to fiddle with it for a couple seconds before it actually snaps into place. Next, we're going to discuss the little bits and features that I forgot to mention thus far, and also the little design quirks that this machine has. So going from bottom to top of the machine, we can see the various features that it has. Looking at the bottom of the machine, we do have two rubber-coated wheels, so that helps the machine from not scratching any sort of delicate flooring, or any flooring in general. Now, it doesn't make it entirely immune. If something gets stuck in here like sand, you could still potentially scratch your floor, but it's a lot better than a hard plastic because not only does it help protect your floors, it also helps protect your vacuum because it's not wearing down those hard plastic wheels. We also have two, well, dare I say, hard plastic wheels on the bottom portion of the vacuum behind the brush roller. We have the main entryway that the air goes into up into the machine from the brush roll area, and we have a little diverter on the inside of here where it basically spreads the suction out through the entirety of the brush roll. We have a small squeegee on the back here. We have various little slots in the side of the brush roller housing to allow air to get in for edge cleaning, as well as a large gate up front to allow large debris through on hard floors. We also have two ingest bars right along here to prevent you from sucking things up like the cord into the vacuum. Up top right here we have the clear window that shows us the status of the brush roll, so you can very easily see if there's anything jammed in the brush roll, if there's an excess of hair on it, or if the brush roll is simply spinning or not. We have a Dirt Devil logo right here, the very small advertisement for the swivel steering. Then up here we have the post motor filter. We have our cyclone assembly and dust cup, as well as the dust cup filter. On the side right here, we have our upper and lower core hooks, our 2-in-1 tool, our bin release button, the turbo brush and the turbo brush caddy that select models have. In the back here, we can see the changeover valve, the hose that goes from the base up to the bin, and then the alternate path that goes from the hose up into the wand and back into the machine, as well as the wand release button, and the release buttons for all three sections of hosing. And then up here we can see our power switch for the main power for the machine and the brush roll on-off switch. And finally, down here, we can see all of the various serial number information for this particular machine. I apologize for the air conditioner that's currently running in the kitchen, as well as the condition of my kitchen floor. It's not ideal right now, but I figured I'd do a very quick pickup test on both the floor and the carpet, using pretty much the first thing I could find to use as something material-wise that would qualify for a pickup test. So I crushed up some saltine crackers, and we're going to see how well the Dirt Devil Razor Pet runs on this particular kitchen floor with the brush roll off in the proper bare floor mode. We're going to see how well that front gate works and how well it's able to pick up the material off the floor. We're also going to get the basic sound of the machine and how loud it is running in a kitchen like this. As we can see, I don't know if you can see that, because a lot of the results were out of frame. You can see where there is some stuff right there that got kind of pushed, but you can also see right over here where there's a good amount of stuff, including a little piece of something that wasn't even included in the pickup test, that the Dirt Devil just completely snowplowed. It seems like that front gate really did not make a difference as far as its ability to pick up these larger debris pieces. Now, granted, you don't always need to pick up large debris with a vacuum cleaner. It's just something that's interesting to see, especially when they design something in the forehead to actually see its ability to pick it up. Now, as far as the smaller crumbs and the dust that was on the floor from the saltine crackers, it did pick that up just fine. It's just the larger pieces that it snowplowed. So we're going to go ahead and see if there's any way that we can pick this stuff up off of this particular floor. Well, it appears that in this case, turning the brush roll on was actually the difference between allowing the large debris to get sucked up into the machine, and the machine just for whatever reason simply not having enough airflow to pull in the larger debris. So we can see, if we wheel this forward, that all the saltine crackers did end up in the bin, but it required the brush roll on to do so. Now the good news is that if you do need to turn the brush roll on, like in this particular instance, there is a squeegee at the back, and it did do a very good job at not kicking debris behind me. I do have bare feet on these floors, so I'd be able to feel if anything was kicked back at my legs, and I didn't feel anything, and there appears to be nothing trapped behind the Dirt Devil. So it seems like if the machine is not picking up large debris or just any debris in general off of your floors, then turning on the brush does seem like a good option, because the bristles do seem to be safe enough to actually sweep up the debris and hopefully not cause any damage to your floors. Now the good news is that the bristles are soft enough to where I don't necessarily think that I'd have any problems having the machine on wood floors, but it still wouldn't necessarily be my first choice. Now we move on to a pretty basic pickup test on carpet. Again, I don't usually put much stock into pickup tests, especially on carpet, because what usually speaks for itself regarding the vacuum is how well it actually pulls the dirt out of the carpet. And the good news is that the Dirt Devil Razor Pet, I've had actually a pretty good experience with it over the last few days that I've had it, or I guess week or so. The first time that I ran it on this brand new carpet once it was freshly installed, I filled several bins full of the loose carpet fibers and the dust from obviously the carpet actually sitting on the roll in the warehouse, and the machine did a very, very nice job at pulling all of that stuff out of the carpet while also not appearing to actually rip up the fibers like some other machines with overly aggressive brush rolls. Now, of course, I never got the opportunity to use this on the carpet at my old house, so I've only tested it on this type of carpet, and I don't know what you call this type of carpet, but all I know is that if your carpet looks like this vacuum will probably work pretty well on it, at least based on my experience. So that is one thing that I've been actually surprisingly impressed with, is its carpet cleaning performance. While the brush roll is very thin and the bristles are relatively soft because of how long they are, or for whatever reason the way the nozzle is designed, even though there is no physical height adjustment, on this particular carpet it just seems to work. So that is one thing that is nice, is whenever you do run into a vacuum that just works and you just don't have to think about it, you can just immediately start cleaning. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So overall, my experience with using this particular machine on carpet has been surprisingly impressive. I didn't expect this machine to work as good on carpet as I would have expected. Although one thing to note about this on your particular carpet, because obviously my carpet is not necessarily your carpet, this machine has the problem that a lot of other machines that I have had issues with, and wait, was that a proper sentence? Okay, point that I'm making is that this machine does not have a manual height adjustment. It just has the floating head that you see right here, like a lot of Shark and Dyson vacuums that you may be used to on the market nowadays, or even something that has a height adjustment but where you don't change it yourself, like on something like the Sebo Automatic X5. This machine doesn't have any sort of manual height adjustment, so for whatever reason this machine just doesn't want to adjust to your carpet, you're pretty much stuck, and there's not really much you can do to actually adjust it properly to your carpet. Although I will say, on all the carpet that I've used this on, which pretty much means just nothing but this carpet, and then the few mats that I have in the house, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the only carpet that I've tested this on thus far. If I do take this over to my dad's house and use it on his very plush pile carpet, I will report back with the results, but I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm even going to get that far with this machine. But nevertheless, my carpet experience with this machine as far as its cleaning ability has been more than adequate, and while this machine, to my knowledge, is not certified by the Carpet and Rug Institute, I can tell that it doesn't really do much as far as actually tearing up my carpet. Since the bristles are nice and soft on it, I don't think that it tearing up your carpet is going to be a big concern. Although, if you do have carpet that is already falling apart and there are threads that are getting pulled out of that carpet, I may be a little bit wary as far as recommending this. But then again, I'd be wary about recommending any machine with a rotating brush on a carpet that is being, well, ripped apart by pretty much anything that walks on it. So, to summarize, the carpet cleaning performance, in my experience, has been fine, but as usual, your mileage may vary. Now, regarding the tool usage on this machine, I did already talk about how the wand can be a little bit finicky to use, and the reach is not all that impressive, but I'll compound on that a little bit by talking specifically about usability of both of the attachments. Now, starting off with this combination crevice tool and dusting brush. So, how do I put this nicely? This machine is junk, or I should say this tool is junk. It basically, how do I put this? The way that it works obviously is you take this brush and you push it forward and it snaps into place right on the crevice tool. Now, one thing I will say is that the actual quality of this dusting brush is not bad. The bristles are nice and soft, and there's a relatively good abundance of them to where if you do get anything stuck on these bristles, it's very easy to pop the attachment off and vacuum off the bristles. So that is something that's very nice. The actual quality of the bristles on this dusting brush are indeed very nice, and something that I don't have much to complain about. The main complaint about this is the size. This brush just simply does not have a good enough angle or a good enough size or design to do adequate dusting. You need much thicker bristles around the perimeter of this, and you need a much differently designed opening to allow this thing to be an effective duster. It's also at too steep of an angle. There's really not much use for this outside of baseboards where this design and angle is something that you'd want. And the fact that you can't change it, you can't rotate it, you can't do anything, it just becomes a problem. If you're trying to actually get into corners, even up high, it's a bit of an annoyance. And if you're trying to do anything like, say, for example, up here, if you're trying to do this, well, that's fine. But if you're trying to get the corners of this, basically what happens is you just end up going right through the bristles and just rubbing whatever surface you're trying to clean on the plastic bezel. And it doesn't really do that great of a job at actually cleaning. And the crevice tool, well, one thing I will say about the crevice tool is that while I do have the same complaints regarding the angle, at least the fact that it has this little part to push the brush in means that even if you block this off, this does have some adequate suction relief on the crevice tool part itself. You can also remove this brush piece entirely if you want and pop it back on, but I don't really see much of a reason to do that. The other thing is that you can only attach this to the end of the wand. If you try to pull this hose out, well, number one, if you try to pull this hose out, it's not going to divert the suction over to this. If you want the suction to divert to the hose, you have to pull the entire wand out and set it aside. And you also can't fit attachments to the end of this. And I'm a 15-plus year vacuum repair technician with a collection of almost 200 vacuum cleaners across a dozen different brands, and I still can't find any attachments that fit inside this hose cuff. Obviously, Dirt Devil did not want you to actually attach attachments to the end of this, which is not great because it means if you don't want to use this wand because either it's not long enough or too long, then you're SOL. You can't do anything about that. Now, if you do have an issue with the length being not long enough, you can use the extension wand from other Dirt Devil machines, but good luck finding one of these for sale. If you manage to snipe one off of one that perhaps was sitting on your neighbor's curb, great. You can attach it to the end of this wand and get a good amount of reach and reach all the way up to the ceiling. But in terms of what you get out of the box, there's really not a good amount of reach. Basically, there really isn't many situations or cleaning tasks where the actual wand on this is the exact good length. It's either too long because you don't want a wand at all and you just want to use the hose, or it's too short because it doesn't reach up or low far enough. One other thing I'd like to complain about is this turbo brush. Now, the actual turbo brush itself is pretty okay. Obviously, it's clear on the front, so you can see if there's anything blocked in it. There's only 2 screws to take it apart and service it. Very easy. There's a nice little opening right there. The brushes do a decent job at picking up pet hair and all sorts of other stuff off of upholstery. It gets crumbs, hair, all sorts of stuff perfectly fine. So what's my problem with it? Well, these little purple teeth, they don't do anything. It's called the Turbo Claw, probably because it has these little claws, but these claws don't do anything. You can't actually groom an animal with this, at least I haven't been able to successfully, in case you can't tell, based on the scars. But this basically just sticks out, and you can see it actually sticks out from where the turbo brush would be flush with the surface, which means that if you have a couch like I do, where there's a lot of loose fibers that are at risk of getting pulled up, these get caught on them and rip them out. So this thing, in the process of using it, while it did clean up some crumbs and dirt and pet hair and stuff off my couch. One thing it also did was literally tear up the fibers of my couch and destroy my couch every time I used it, because these weird little comb things that don't seem to have a purpose just stick out and get caught on everything that they can, and it makes the turbo brush very difficult and annoying to use. And I tried to disassemble this. There is no way to pull this purple piece off. It's integrated into the housing, and as far as I know, there's no way to get a turbo brush that doesn't have this little claw piece on it. So I haven't found any use for this little claw piece, and unfortunately it makes the turbo brush very difficult to use and a pain to work with, as well as, of course, like I mentioned, actively causing damage to my couch. So I'm definitely not a fan of that. I'm also not a fan of the way that this snaps in here. I've actually heard some other customer reviews complain about this turbo brush bracket actually breaking because you have to bend it in order to fit the turbo brush in. This just doesn't work all that well. I feel like there's plenty of other methods to actually secure the turbo brush to the machine that would be a lot better than this. I've seen a lot of other mechanisms where it actually sort of loops and hooks on the turbo brush like that, or even where it just sits in. But this is not a very good way to hold the turbo brush, and you can see it's very awkward and just doesn't seem to be very well designed. Next, we're going to look at basic maintenance of this machine. Now, we're not going to do anything too in-depth because I just did an in-depth maintenance tutorial on this exact vacuum, so that will be linked in the description. So that way, if you want to see a more in-depth maintenance tutorial on how to do pretty much everything on this machine, then there is that. But I will at least show you that you press this one button up the top here to release the bin, just like that. And as we can see, there's a little sticker on the back here. It says, your vacuum has a filter and it needs you. The main filter is the F112 filter. That's the filter inside here. Then the F111 filter, that's the filter that's in the post-motor filter area. So to access this filter, you just twist this and pop it right off. Filter's right there. You can see it gets dirty pretty quickly, and that's unfortunate. There's a little purple thing that it slides into. This just twists off. It's a two-piece filter. It's very easy to vacuum it off or do whatever you need to do with that. And pop that back on, click it back into place. And of course, there's a small button right here that you push to dump all the dirt into the trash can. One issue with this design is that, number one, it's bagless, so you're not going to have as good a filtration as a lot of other machines. The other thing is that it's a lot more maintenance, and also you got to worry about trying to find the proper filters. It's just a big hassle. Now, the good news is that the F112 filter that's inside of here can be had as a replacement for only about $8. So while this filter inside here is washable, after about every probably year or so of use, probably a year or 2 years depending on your usage, you're going to want to replace this filter. And if you don't have any other vacuum to vacuum off the filter, as you can tell, that filter gets dirty very quickly, you're going to want to wash that filter, or at least tap it out, brush it off after about every other use, or about every time that you fill the bin. You can also use the dusting brush to actually clean off these cones on the inside of here, and also clean off the filter as well. So that is something that you can do. So one little issue that I've had with this is that the way that a lot of these bagless, this little piece that sticks out on the inside, there is like a little lip, and especially right here where the entryway is, you can tell that a lot of dirt just gets kind of stuck there. So whenever you're actually emptying this out, you pretty much have to take that purple thing out and, dump it that way. And it gets to be a little bit more of a hassle than if you just had a simple bag that you could just fill up and then throw away and replace. It's a lot more work, and it's a little bit more annoying to deal with. That also means that you're going to have a lot of dust escape back into the air, which is why I recommend emptying this canister outside if you can. Another thing I recommend with every bagless machine is whenever you do empty this, take a damp rag and wipe off the perimeter of both the actual cup lid and the bottom portion of the actual dust cup, so that way this entire outer perimeter isn't covered in dust. wipe off this whole thing so that way it's not covered in dust, and especially wipe off the seals so everything seals back together correctly. You're not potentially blowing dust all throughout the system once you put the dust canister back on, if you've had any dust that's settled on the outside of this from emptying. So that's something I recommend. Wipe this down clean, make sure it's clean. You don't have to wash the inside of this bin, although you can if you want. You can wash all of these parts. I wouldn't wash this top piece though, but the purple piece on the inside, the bin, and both pieces of the filter, you can wash all those. Just make sure that everything that you wash dries for anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. Another filter that you have is the post motor filter. There's a little button right here. You push this, pop that right out. And one thing I will say is that filtration on this is pretty bad. You can see this is supposed to be red. You can see that this entire inside is black with carbon dust, and this machine's barely a week old. This particular post motor filter doesn't do a great job at filtering. This is not a sealed system. You're not going to have any sort of good filtration. For some reason, there's these little white particles that are stuck in this black filter, and this is just a two-piece filter, very easy to take apart and wash. So again, I'd wash this probably about as often as you wash the other filter in the bin. When you go to wash this filter, you might as well wash this one too. Again, just make sure that you let them dry for 24 to 48 hours, and about every year or so, you're going to want to replace this. Maybe not every year. Maybe if you wash it like every 6 months, I would say. Actually, yeah, probably wash this like every 6 months, and every probably 2 years, you're going to want to replace this. Problem is, Dirt Devil doesn't make these very readily available, so it's going to be kind of hard to find these. So good luck with that. And it just kind of sits back in there. See, it's kind of loose in there, but this little grill just kind of sits right on there and snaps right back in place. So there's that. And then of course, once you get that on, you can take your bin and snap it right in place. As far as this brush roll goes, if you get any hair wrapped around this brush roll, it's very easy to just kind of stick your fingers in here and grab the hair and pull it straight out. As you can see, I just kind of pull the hair straight out just like that. Or you can also get a pair of scissors or a seam ripper and pull all the hair off of this brush roll. Each of these little grooves right here is nicely indented or recessed, so if you need to actually get something in there to pull out the hair, you can do that. Or you can even just pull off this rear panel and just pull the brush roll out completely and just pull everything off with your fingers manually. That's another way to do it as well. In fact, that's my preferred way of doing it, so you don't need any tools. You can just simply grab all the hair and pull it straight off the brush roll. It's pretty easy to clean, and you can also wipe down the brush roll if you want to clean up the bristles and make sure the machine is working good. One thing that I do like about this machine that is kind of cool is the fact that a lot of parts of this machine, like the changeover valve and the circuit board and the brush roll motor, are all behind clear plastic, so you can actually see where a lot of these parts are. While it's not easy to replace them because you're really unable to find the parts, and that's one thing that I do have a problem with this machine. As far as the way that it looks, I think it looks pretty cool, and I think the overall styling of this machine, while subjective, is something that I personally like. I figured I'd mention that while we're down here and looking at this cool transparent stuff. Next is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit more freehand. Now, I did comment on this a little bit and sort of allude to this in the last segment, but we're going to discuss the repairability and the build quality of this machine. Now, as far as the build quality goes, it's a Dirt Devil. What do you expect? It's not the kind of thing where it feels like the second I pull it out of the box, it feels like the thing's going to fall apart in my hands and just break into a million pieces. But it's also not really sturdy to the point where I'd feel confident that the thing would last a solid decade. I feel like this machine, as far as your actual longevity, you'd be able to get maybe 2.5 years out of this at most. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because with something like this, it's kind of a crapshoot. Depending on which one you get, you could get a lemon that breaks after 6 months, and you could be super lucky and treat your vacuum well and get 8 years out of the thing. And it's really hard to say since this machine was only first released in 2017, so it hasn't been on the market all that long. And I don't see much evidence of these being long-lasting machines, but I also haven't necessarily seen contrary evidence either. I just don't see a lot of these in the wild. It seems like most people that are buying Dirt Devils are buying the much more cheaper models, and people shopping in this price range are generally buying something else from a company like Hoover or Shark. So it's kind of hard to say how well these machines actually last in terms of the build quality. Based on what I'm seeing so far, and after only having a week experience with the machine, I'm not all that confident. Now, I'm not saying that this thing will fall apart. I know I've had some people try to argue that every single machine that is on the market nowadays in every big box store can't even last 6 months. And that's just simply not true. There are plenty of machines where they have build quality where it's at least consistent and decent enough to where if you take care of the machine, you're not throwing it down, 17 flights of concrete steps a day and keeping up with basic maintenance on the machine, then it'll obviously last 5-10 years. The problem with this machine is the second part of this conversation, which is parts availability, of which there is none. Like, literally none. You go to Dirt Devil's website and you go to their support page for this machine. Do you know what you find? You find the filter in the dust cup, and you find this tool. That's it. You can't find anything else. On Dirt Devil's own support page, that's all you can find. I've seen plenty of customers in reviews complain about, oh no, my belt broke. I can't find a belt. Oh no, my turbo brush bracket broke. I can't find the bracket. Oh no, the bin lid snapped off. I can't find a new bin. And while I haven't necessarily reached out to Dirt Devil directly in regards to this exact machine, one thing that I can say for sure is that the one time that I did contact Dirt Devil regarding a issue with needing a replacement part for a machine, it was literally a machine that I just pulled out of the box and the handle was broken on it. And Dirt Devil literally made me chop the cord off of the machine and then sent me a completely different machine for free, I will admit. But still, they made me chop the cord off my old brand new vacuum that I just taken out of the box and not had a chance to use yet, and sent me a whole new vacuum instead of just a handle, because apparently they didn't have the handle anymore. Even though they are perfectly capable of manufacturing the handle for the vacuum, but as far as selling me the handle, no, that just wasn't allowed. And it's very bizarre because the company that owns Dirt Devil, TTI, also owns Hoover and Oric. And those companies have been relatively good as far as after product support with a lot of their machines. They have TTI service centers where you can go and take your machine to and get pretty much any basic part that you need. And at the very least, the good news is that in those cases where, yes, COVID is kind of screwing everything up and everything's supply chain, I have seen some issues where Hoover, as an example, would get basically a warranty claim for something like a broken power switch, and they would just send a whole new machine because they're having trouble getting the power switch from the assembly line, which is something I can fully understand. So my problem isn't that, oh, Dirt Devil won't send you a new machine if yours is broken, which it appears that that's something that they obviously would do. So if you were to buy this machine and you were to have an issue with it somewhere within the 2-year warranty, then it seems like Dirt Devil would at least put in some effort to help you. The problem is that whenever it's a pretty basic, simple issue and they can't help you because they don't allow you to buy the part. That's the problem that I have. There's no schematics for this machine. If you go to Parts Warehouse, I literally linked the parts in my maintenance video. The best case scenario, the parts that you can get are the brush roll, the 2 attachments, either of the filters, and that's it. Literally nothing else. You can't get hoses. If the hose splits, you can't get a hose. If the brush roll motor goes dead, you can't get a new brush roll motor. If your main motor goes dead, you just gotta swap it with whatever replacement you can find, which this is a pretty off-the-shelf motor from what I understand. But still, If your cord goes bad, that's a whole process. If this changeover valve in the back of the machine fails and gets worn out, what are you supposed to do? And that is something that gives me pause with this machine, and it makes it very, very difficult to recommend, even though I do kind of like the machine. It's very quirky. I do like the Dirt Devil brand, and for a Dirt Devil, this is a pretty nice machine, all things considered. But with those issues regarding repairability and build quality, this machine is just not something that I would be able to sell to a customer because like I said, I'm a vacuum repair technician. I don't own my own shop. I work from home, but at the same time, if I ran a shop and I had to sell a customer this, knowing that I literally can't provide them any sort of after sale support short of this exact filter in this dust cup and that's it, I don't know how well I'd be able to sleep at night, because not only is the machine that they'd be getting not up to quality, but what do you do if something goes wrong? If a hose splits, if a wand cracks, if a button fails, if a switch goes bad, what are you supposed to do with this machine? And the fact that that's not all that clear is a very big problem in my eyes, because it makes it very difficult to really see what the advantage of buying this machine would be, unless you are the type of person to use it and throw it away when you have the slightest problem with it, which is something I don't even at all endorse as an even acceptable philosophy. So, at that point, what am I able to do? So I know this part of the segment of the video is kind of rambly, but if you're trying to find parts for this machine, you're not going to have a lot of luck. And that's just the unfortunate reality of it, is that if you're worried about the build quality and you're worried about the parts availability of this machine, you might have to look elsewhere. And since we're on the topic of comparing this to other machines, let's look at what else your $100 to $135 can get you, and see if the Dirt Devil is a good option when stacked up against the competition. Because most people don't buy vacuums, well, in a vacuum. Most people will look at this and compare it to whatever else they see on the shelf or on the website or whatever the case may be, and wonder which one is worth their hard-earned cash. So we can compare this to a few other machines and see what the differences are. So the first machine we're going to compare this to is one that, based on the design and the sort of layout of this machine, it seems to be directly competing with. And that's the Shark Navigator Liftaway NV352. Now, both of these machines are similar in the fact that both can be found for anywhere for like $100 to $150. The Shark in this case is a little bit more expensive. You can find some variants as cheap as around $100 to $120, and there are some variants that go upwards of $150 to $200. There's a very wide price range for these machines, whereas the Dirt Devils are a little bit more consistent for the Razor series vacuums. So both of these are similar in the fact that they both have, pretty much identical layouts. They have the main floor head with a separate motor that then goes up into a wand that then goes into a dirt container, into a motor that's mounted above the floor head and out exhausted in the front. Except there are a few differences. One main thing is that the Shark actually has more parts available for it, which is not something you'd expect to hear from me or many other vacuum technicians. Shark is oftentimes known to have very poor parts availability, and their warranty service is known to not be the most reliable. But because this specific model has been on the market for almost 10 years, specifically the NV351 and NV352s, you can find pretty much any part that you need for these machines, all the way down to individual components like power heads, brush rolls, belts, dirt bins, hoses, you name it, you can pretty much find it for this machine. So if you are worried about parts availability and you like the style of this Dirt Devil, maybe consider spending the extra few bucks, and the Shark Navigator Liftaway might be a little bit better. Both of these machines have 25-foot cords. Both of these machines have swivel steering and very smooth swivel steering. Both these machines have rubber-coated wheels. The Shark Navigator actually has a, in my opinion, worse handle. I actually prefer the handle on the Dirt Devil in terms of the shape of it, but the actual quality on the Shark appears to be a little bit better. The hoses on the Dirt Devil appear to be a little bit better. The Shark is well known and infamous for the hoses splitting and dry rotting after a very short period of time, so that is something to keep in mind. The Shark has a sealed HEPA system. The Dirt Devil does not have a HEPA filter or a sealed system, and its filtration is much worse. And the Cyclones are actually surprisingly similar, even though they are set up a little bit differently. The actual way that they work is a little bit more similar than you would initially think upon first glance. Depending on which, the Shark, no matter which SKU you get, has better attachments. Even if you get the one that just has the turbo brush is better than the one on the Dirt Devil. And if you get the one that just has the two basic attachments, those are also better attachments. And even if you don't want to use the lift-away portion, you know, if you want to get one of the more cheaper Shark Navigator units that don't have the lift-away portion and have a larger capacity and are just the swivel models that you can get for like $110, those also pretty similar. And those ones just don't have the lift-away. They don't have the handle that pops out for use as a wand, and otherwise they're relatively similar. And those machines aren't sealed, but some of them still do have HEPA filters. So that's that compared to the Shark. Now, as far as another machine you might see on the market in a very similar price range is from the same company. I mean, from the same company, yes, but also not from the same company, and that's the Hoover. So for around your anywhere from like $100 to $120, $130, you can get a Hoover Wind Tunnel T-Series, and you can get it in both a bagged and a bagless unit. The bagged unit is usually a little bit more expensive. I recommend the bagged unit because you get HEPA bags, you get a much better filtration system, you don't have to worry about filter maintenance nearly as often, and it's just overall a better machine. You get a headlight with the bagged version. Now, this specific bagless version, the consumer version, isn't in stores anymore. There's an updated version that they now sell, but this is, you know, feature parity a lot closer to the Dirt Devil than you would think, but it's a bit of a more classic upright style. So to shut off the brush roll, instead of having a switch that's up on the top of the machine, you actually have a pedal right here that you push in and out to shut the brush on and off. And you also get, while that is actually on the floor, you actually do get a handle mounted power switch. So the power switch is a little bit easier to get to, and then the floor switch is a little bit harder to get to, so take your pick. This particular example also has a cord rewind, which the Dirt Devil Razor does not, although Dirt Devil does make a Enduramax and PowerMax XL machine that is competing a little bit more closely with this, that also has a cord rewind variant available for slightly cheaper than this Razor. So that is an option as well. The turbo brush, the bracket is actually a little bit different, so it actually clips onto the machine a little bit nicer. And this turbo brush is also a nicer turbo brush than the Dirt Devil. Does a better job at cleaning, has a little bit better airflow and a bit better contact, and doesn't tear up the couch. And another little thing is that, again, the attachments are also better. So one thing that's a bit different with this machine is that you have this little button right here that you just push and your hose pops out. Now, yes, it is true you don't have the handle that turns into the hose, but you can actually use the hose by itself if you want to, just with a tool right on the end of it. You're not forced to use the wand. And the other thing is that, well, this extension wand is actually a little bit shorter than the Dirt Devil's. The crevice tool is a lot longer and a lot more usable. So if you're trying to use this to get up into corners and stuff, this actually will be a little bit better of an experience than with the Dirt Devil. And fun fact, both the Dirt Devil and the Hoover use the same attachment fitting. So if you want to buy these Hoover attachments or any standard 1.25" attachments and use them on your Dirt Devil, you can do that. So if you don't like the attachments on the Dirt Devil, you can use any standard universal 1.25" attachments. And I would say the millimeter version for that, but I don't remember the millimeter number off the top of my head. But it's 1.25". So you can use pretty much any attachment you want that is those measurements on the Dirt Devil. If you like the Dirt Devil and you just don't like the attachments that it comes with, then that is an option. Of course, they're not going to store on board, but Well, actually, maybe. Let's see if you want. Let me move this up here. So let's say if I don't want this, and I want the Hoover dusting brush, will that... Oh, okay. Huh, so that will fit on there. Okay. So if you want to buy the Hoover dusting brush and use that instead of this thing, you lose your crevice tool, but whatever. You want to do that, you can do that. So, and it does fit too. So if I take... So, this Dirt Devil attachment doesn't fit in there. That's too bad. But if I put the wand on, that basically adapts it, and now I can put that on there. So, and it goes the other way too. So if I want to push this, see that right there, and I want to put the dusting brush on it, I can do that. So that's interesting. Just gotta put that back in there. It's totally not a pain. So yeah, so the attachments on this Hoover, as an example, would be a little bit better than the Dirt Devil. And in fact, Hoover did just release a brand new bagless upright that'd be directly competing with this Dirt Devil. And I do plan on reviewing that fairly soon. The next vacuum that I get will likely either be that, a Kenmore, or perhaps a Dyson. It really just depends on what I can find. Or maybe I'll find something else, who knows. And of course this has better attachments. They all store on board. No issues with that. Everything just kind of works. And sorry, my stupid roommate's cats keep knocking crap over in my kitchen and causing damage to my house. But yeah, so this is an example of yet another machine that might be a bit of a better option than this Dirt Devil, even within the TTI product stack. Now again, the consumer version of this machine is not available anymore. I did have the newer version of this. It was called the Elite Rewind Plus. And there's also a whole house version that's at Walmart right now too, and that's also an option. And I think those while they're a little bit heavier than the Dirt Devil, the build quality in those are a little bit better, and better attachments, and they just are more traditional style uprights if you happen to prefer that. Now, the next thing we're going to compare this machine to is actually my daily driver vacuum. One that is also in the, well, sort of $100 to $150 price point, although this one's on the upper end of it. Although also on the lower end of it, depending on where you look. And that's this particular machine. The machine I still haven't done a full review on, but I've been daily driving this machine since I purchased it a few years ago. This is the Sanitaire SL4110A, and you may also know this as the Bissell Power Force bagged. Now, this particular machine is basically the old style Bissell Power Force, but upgraded with a better quality commercial cord and a metal handle. So it's actually a fairly nice machine, and the fact that you can also upgrade it with HEPA bags means that for my use it's been perfectly fine, because I don't really need a machine that cleans well on hard floors or has a brushable shutoff, because I generally use separate cordless machines for hard floors. And as you can see, you can easily put a HEPA bag in here and get much better filtration than this Dirt Devil. And you can also put a HEPA filter in the exhaust as well. The HEPA bags are super cheap and super easy to swap out. Dirt Devil unfortunately doesn't offer bagged machines anymore. So if you're in the mood for a bagged machine, well, unfortunately anything from Dirt Devil's current lineup is not going to suit you. Now, the Sanitaire doesn't have every feature that this Dirt Devil has. It has some that are better and some that are worse, even though the machine is a little bit more expensive. While the tool reach is about the same, the tools come out in a little bit of a more old style way and require a little bit more assembly, but otherwise still do the trick. There is no brush roll shutoff, so the brush roll is always spinning, and it also means that there is a rubber belt that you have to replace about every 6 months to a year. And the cord is a much better quality cord, and it's also 5 feet longer at 30 feet versus the Dirt Devil's 25 feet. And of course, like I mentioned, you also have that metal handle, so you have much better build quality in the handle. The machine feels a lot more sturdy as a result. The color, in my opinion, is nicer. I love blue and silver, so it worked out perfectly for me. And also, the brush roller is a lot wider than on the Dirt Devil. Although, I actually don't mind the wideness on the Dirt Devil. I know a lot of people have complained about that, but I actually don't mind thinner brush rolls because it means that the suction is able to be a little bit more concentrated. And yes, while you do have to make more passes as a result, each one of those passes will have more power to each part of the brush roll that you're actually covering the carpet with. I said that weird, but you know what I mean. Basically, it means that since you are making more passes, it means that each pass has more power going to it and more capabilities for the suction and airflow to actually pull in the dirt. And it also means that you're able to get into tighter spaces as well. So I see pretty much, a universal advantage for smaller bases. But at the same time, I think that the Sanitaire is the ideal base size. It's not too wide, and it's also not too thin. When we compare it to the aforementioned Hoover, the Hoover is, I believe, a little bit wider. Or is it about the same? I'm actually not sure. Let me look at this real quick. No, actually, they're about the same. So yeah, so that Hoover and this Bissell slash Sanitaire, I mean, it's still at its heart a Bissell, and Sanitaire is now owned by Bissell, so I guess you could call it a Bissell either way. But this is another machine where, sure, it might not be entirely feature parity-ish, that's also not a word. It might not have complete feature parity with the Dirt Devil, but you do have some trade-offs and some advantages. So if there's a certain feature set that you like more, and you're more inclined to like the feature set of this Sanitaire, then that may be a better option as well. Or even perhaps the Big Green variant. And one final section of vacuum comparisons, and that's with Dirt Devil's history. Now, one thing that I've had sort of a recent thought on while actually finishing the production of this review is that, well, I'm a vacuum collector, so I can obviously compare this to a lot of older machines in Dirt Devil's lineup and see what the equivalent to this is from previous years. And it actually is kind of fitting, because we have this Dirt Devil Razor Pet from 2017, and then we have this Dirt Devil Eye from 2007, and if we move this breeze, we can see that we have this Dirt Devil Ultra MVP from 1997. So it seems like about every 10 years is when Dirt Devil releases a major flagship upright vacuum. And you can see that the design disparities between these two machines and then, of course, the Razor are just vastly different than each other. And they all just kind of have their own unique identity and feel. And that certainly is something that comes forward in a lot of these older Dirt Devils. They feel like they have their own character. Now, sure, they have their flaws. They have the same sort of build quality grievances that the new Dirt Devil has, in the sense that you do feel like there are some parts on the machine that wear out over time, and that's evidenced by these two machines, because these two machines don't exactly run perfectly. The Ultra MVP has some damage to the base, and it needs some more work done to it. And the Dirt Devil Eye, I honestly haven't even started working on yet. It's just a whole cluster. There's both of the switches in it are bad, and I need to find a way to change those and do some work on the motor, and it's a whole thing. The one Dirt Devil that I've had that's been pretty solid is the Dirt Devil Breeze, and this is a budget model from, I believe this particular one's from 2011, and this one has been a very solid machine over the years. There's not much to go wrong on it. It's just the main problem with this machine is that the belts on it go bad so quickly. And that is thankfully one thing the Dirt Devil Razor Pet addresses. It's one of the only Dirt Devils in Dirt Devil's lineup that has a serpentine belt and a separate brush roll motor, which means that you're not going through belts like crazy. Your vacuum is not chewing through belts like a hungry wolf through steak, and you can actually vacuum more than 2 square feet of your living room before your brush roll and belt are now slipping. So that is one thing that's nice about the new Razor Pet. But compared to these other machines, this new Dirt Devil is just kind of boring. And it seems like Dirt Devil has just not really had much soul in it anymore, if that makes sense. That may sound overly philosophical. Philosophical? Is that the word I was looking for? Yes, that might sound overly philosophical, but it's just one of those things that I've noticed. This Dirt Devil Razor Pet, it honestly just feels kind of like a Shark knockoff. And there's really not much to say about that. And there's really not much exciting about it that makes you really want to get it, at least as a collector. And then, obviously, as a consumer, there's really not much I can say about it. So that's basically that. We're going to go ahead and run this real quick, just for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to give my final thoughts on the machine. Also, I don't think I commented, but you can tell how well the motor sounds. It has an 8-amp motor in it, and it sounds just like everything else on the market in this price range. It's not overly loud, but I have noticed that it has gotten louder as time goes on. But with that said, we'll still run it real quick. And yes, I'm fully aware that I'm vacuuming too slowly. If you are actually going to vacuum your living room, you should not be vacuuming that quickly. You're not giving your vacuum enough time to actually really get the good deep clean. But, and of course, an alarm's going off. So, in conclusion, while I do think that if you're a Dirt Devil collector, I think it'd be very interesting to try out one of these, especially while it's still on sale, because I think these are certainly interesting and fascinating machines, and I don't know how long Dirt Devil is going to keep these on the market. Obviously, their market for high-end Dirt Devils, if you can even call that a real category, is certainly a market that's, well, saturated with competitors that I'm sure are outselling this machine. But if you're just a normal person and you see this in a store, is it worth picking up? And honestly, the biggest deterrent that I have for saying yes is the lack of parts availability. Because otherwise, I actually do like this machine. Now, there are a couple reasons why I don't like it, including some issues with my particular unit. My particular unit has had a few issues as a result of whatever random problems it had. And again, mine was new in box, so there shouldn't be any excuse for it having issues. But the main issue is that the power head, right where the actual swiveling joint is for some reason covered in sticky glue for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if that's like excess glue from the factory that just made it onto the machine, but if there's just glue all over the inside of it where that hose is, and the hose isn't split, there's just glue there. I don't know why that is. Also, I've also noticed that the bearings in this particular motor on my unit are a little bit dry, and even out of the box, the particular machine has a relatively long wind down that I'm not really comfortable with for a brand new machine. It's the kind of wear that I'd expect on a machine that's about 5 years old. Now, this machine was manufactured in 2020, so it's entirely possible this was sitting in a warehouse that was very dry for like a year, but still, that's not something that I really should be able to excuse on a brand new machine, because in just the short time that I've been using it, I've noticed that the motor bearings have been getting louder and louder, very subtly, but still getting louder and louder. And it is the kind of thing where if I was to daily this for about 5 years, I'm sure by the time the 5 year mark hits, this thing very well could sound like a chainsaw, at least until you actually rip the thing open and give the motor a good service. Something that likely would not be easy to do given the lack of available parts in case something goes wrong. So, with all that in mind, while I do like this machine, I do like how maneuverable it is. Its carpet cleaning performance has been very satisfactory, and just the design of it looks cool to me. There's really not much else to like about it. The filtration is very poor, as expected. The tools are very subpar, and that's something that I've come to expect from Dirt Devil, but compared to other machines on the market from companies like Eureka and Bissell and Hoover, even in this price range, or in Shark, even in this price range, this is the worst set of attachments that I've seen. And while the swivel steering is nice, having a good quality swivel steering is, not really that hard of a thing to do nowadays, but it is still something that's good. But again, you're going to get better from something like a Shark. I still like this better than the one Bissell that I tried that was really bad. That was also $99 at the time. I believe that was the Powerlifter Swivel Pet, not the Bag Pet. The Bag Pet is a fantastic machine, but the Swivel Pet is still a very bad machine. I would still rather take this over that any day. But compared to a lot of the other stuff, especially if you have, like, if you're buying this for $130, you could save up $20 more. You could get that Sanitaire, you could get a Hoover Tempo, you could get a Shark MV352. There's just so many better options if you're willing to put down just a few more dollars. If you're getting this in the $100 price range, I still think that, sometimes you can even find a Hoover Tempo for around $100, $120, and I still think that'd be a better choice than this. But even the bagless Bissells and Hoovers that you see at Walmart, I think would be a better choice than this, with the exception of if you're looking at a Bissell specifically, one that doesn't have a brush roll shut off, and you need this for floors, then sure, pick this, but expect to throw it away after so amount of time, because the thing, you're at the mercy of, if a part goes wrong, you have to stop everything and stop what you're doing and have to deal with their customer service and everything. So if you are going to buy this, maybe get a backup vacuum, because if you have to deal with any warranty claims or if a part goes bad, there's not much you can do. And that's, like I said before, that's just the biggest thing that's dissuading me from recommending this, is that the machine itself, yeah, it has its problems, but if you don't care about those problems, then I'm sure it'd be fine. The lack of available parts is, and that's the biggest reason why I can't recommend the Dirt Devil Razor Pet. This machine was fun to use, and it definitely is one that's very interesting to check out. But if you're looking at this on the shelf in the $100 to $130 price range, I would suggest getting something else. Specifically, spending a few extra bucks and getting, like I said, the Sanitaire SL4110A, the Hoover Tempo T-Series bagged, the Shark Navigator Liftaway MV352. If you're in the market for this exact machine, there's just so many better options out there. I do think that if you are dead set on a Dirt Devil, and you really want a Dirt Devil, and you've decided you want a Dirt Devil, you want a brand new Dirt Devil, and you specifically only want to shop within the Dirt Devil brand, then here's your new machine. Here's your new machine. Enjoy it. I'm sure it'll last you, as long as you take care of it and you're super careful with it, you might be able to get 5 years out of it. And if you do, I guess money well spent if you're willing to throw the thing away or buy another one and then just hope that it's a different part that goes bad on it so you can build a good one out of the two. I don't know. So I'm starting to ramble a little bit. It is 6 o'clock in the morning. You can tell it's starting to get light out. So I'd better stop this video. I've probably taken enough of your time already. But I hope that if you have any questions about this machine, that I've answered them in this in-depth review. And I really hope that I'm not missing anything. So that way you can 100% decide with all the information presented whether or not this machine is a good fit for you. And if you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below. If you have any questions about any other machine that I've shown in this video, be sure to drop those in the comments below as well. And you will likely be seeing more vacuum reviews coming up soon. I have the Shark Navigator Swivel Plus up for review. That's another competitor to this machine that I'd actually recommend over it. Again, for about the same price, even with its own flaws. And then there's also the Bissell PowerForce Compact. I'll probably be doing a review on that soon, because I've been putting that off for a while, and I finally have one that I just refurbished. I might do a review on that, and a few other machines as well that I'll be doing videos on. So looking forward to that. I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys enjoyed this and found it helpful. Again, I'll try to link everything that I can remember in the description. If I forget something, if I said I linked in this video and I forgot to link it, be sure to put that in the comments below so I can update the description. So hopefully this will be the most in-depth, comprehensive review for this machine, and hopefully me wasting an hour and a half of your time was well worth it, because hopefully it helped you save a bit of money. Anyways, this is Intelitech Studios signing out, and I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you all have a good one. Peace!